Oh, hopefully we are live. Apparently we are. Hello, Dan.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for coming on as my second guest, and I hope we stay up for longer than 2 weeks. That would be good.
Did the other one just disappear?
No, it had that grayed out thing. This has violated the community guidelines, and I just thought
Right.
crap. So I just deleted it, and then I thought, after I deleted it, I thought, oh, I should have just left it up as evidence that it's been removed. But oh well, it's all a bit of a learning process, isn't it?
Yep, exactly.
So yeah. So crypto, should we start with some crypto information?
One of my many favorite topics.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, think of this as crypto for dummies, because I've been trying to get my head around it for ages, and there are two things that keep sort of messing with my head, and one is, how is it not just a digital fiat currency? Because it's not backed by anything, like it's not backed by gold. So to me, it just seems like it's a digital version of a fiat currency. And also partly because was it a couple of years ago where, because there was supposed to be a finite amount of crypto, well, Bitcoin, sorry. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin specifically for a minute. They said there was a finite amount, and then they mined some more a couple of years ago. So that kind of made me go, hang on a minute. And the other thing is, what happens if they shut the internet down? We're screwed then, aren't we? So
they're all big questions, right? So let's again. Initially, I'm going to target Bitcoin, and this is going to make a lot of people unhappy, because the first step I'm going to make is I am a true crypto advocate. Like, I want this technology to be what they said it is, which is effectively decentralized network or decentralized currency. Where we actually bank the unbanked. We want to have control of finances without any kind of government or kind of legal interference. That's what I want it to be. However, I do have quite a nuanced position, and I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what we've currently got. So just focusing on specifically on Bitcoin for a minute, in terms of the mining process or the number of Bitcoin, so that is actually fixed, and the mining process is a constant activity, because actually it's the mining that attracts people to the network and provides security to the network. So without going into too much detail, effectively there's a protocol behind the scenes which says I'm gonna control how much Bitcoin is produced. But actually the reason for that happening is that all this Bitcoin really is, it's a network. It's a network of nodes that kind of talk to each other, and they commit transactions to effectively let's call it a blockchain, but really it's like a glorified database. It's like a glorified ledger. So basically, that's a constant process. Mining, the complexity of mining goes up and down based on who's involved in it. And so effectively, it mines all the time. Now, effectively, there's a reward. They call it a reward, right? So every time you mine a block, which is really just solving a problem or committing things to the database, it'll reward you with a certain amount of Bitcoin. Now, that halves I can't remember the exact numbers, every couple of years. So effectively, the incentive to kind of get involved in mining only works if the price is going up. But just to answer your original question, there is only 21 million of them, and there will only ever be 21 million of them. So in theory, if there was only the Bitcoin network, that's the anti-inflation kind of safeguard, or that's the attraction, because people say, well, there's only 21 million, therefore the more people use it, the more effectively valuable each one becomes.
So it's kind of almost like gold in its own right, as in there's a finite amount.
Sort of. However, and this is where I'm going to start throwing in the things that make people angry at me, is that they say that inflation doesn't exist, but that's not necessarily true, because you can effectively clone Bitcoin, which has happened many, many times, and then effectively say, right, I've just taken the Bitcoin network, I've done a copy of it, I'm going to call it something else, and then all of a sudden there's either 21 million or any other number available of a very similar token. So other ones you may have heard of, like Bitcoin Cash, was effectively a copy of Bitcoin at a certain point in time. It was then hard forked into its own network. Then all of a sudden you've effectively duplicated all the tokens that were there, and now you're doing a slightly different protocol. So you're doing mining at a slightly different time. The reward is slightly differently. The number of tokens available is slightly different. So in my mind, that's inflation, right? Because it's not Bitcoin, but it's exactly the same, and it's the same technology. It's all the same features. So therefore,
so is it like printing? Is it like printing money then, but printing crypto?
Almost, yeah. The only difference is that the control of that kind of copying it's not in anyone's hands. So at the moment, if you print money, it's got to be done by like the central bank. Whereas if you want to take a copy of Bitcoin, anyone can do it. So when I first started going into getting into Bitcoin, I did that process because I thought I need to know how this works. Like, I'm interested in it. It sounds like it's a kind of rebellion type thing, so I'm interested in it. So I actually took a copy of the code and then got it working, got my own network working, just so I could understand it. So anyone can do that if you've got like the kind of reasonable skills to do it. So that would be me like, okay, well, I'm gonna try and print money, but you then got the challenge to say that, well, I need to convince people that they need to use my currency instead of Bitcoin. So where we are now, you've got like hundreds upon hundreds of people who've done that exact same thing, who have all succeeded to different extents. So the price of Bitcoin has obviously gone through the roof because it's the first one that was kind of took hold.
Yeah.
But then there are lots of others who are trying to do different things with it. You know, at its core, Bitcoin is just a transaction system. It is more like it's a database with a currency associated to it. So what they've tried to do is kind of make it a bit more make it a bit more smarter. I don't know if that's going to make me sound dumb now by saying that, but they've tried to add on different features to it. So let's try and increase the transaction time. Let's build on kind of side chains. Let's build on some other technology that actually you can start doing contracts within the network. So rather than just me giving you some currency, what we can actually do is set up a contract that says, right, we're going to set up a contract between us. We're going to agree how this contract gets executed or what are the conditions, and then it just sits there as a piece of code that just waits for those conditions to be met and then executes. So that is, don't get me wrong, that is a really good feature because it effectively takes away that kind of the middleman required to kind of execute it. It's all done automatically, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then most lately, they've got this kind of Web3 type stuff where actually we're trying to solve more problems. We're trying to solve cross-chain problems. So, for example, you may have something on Bitcoin, but the person you're trying to send to doesn't have Bitcoin, but they do have this other wallet in a different currency. You want to be able to send that, and then something to kind of sit in the middle and say, right, you want to send to this network, right? I'm going to do a conversion for you, and then I'm going to send it on.
Like buying something from an overseas trader in pounds, where you can kind of switch it, can't you, to their currency?
Exactly. The only difference is, and again, this will definitely cause some negative comments, is that we're doing it through a network and through a different kind of protocol. It's not through a clearing bank or a clearing institution, because usually that's where you have to pay all the fees. That's where all the regulation comes in, because it'll say, right, what are you trying to do? Right, I've got to settle these currencies through these kind of networks. It's got to go through like all kind of like anti-money laundering, sanctions checks, whereas this technology allows you to transact with anyone you want.
Yeah, so it's very swift. It sounds to me a bit like the sort of the fiat currency we use now, which is basically now all just based on faith and trust, isn't it? Because it's not backed by anything.
Yep.
But it's just a digital version, and the same trust and faith has to be there, but just digitally. But actually, there's more. Well, because our fiat currency has been around so long, it's built up that faith and trust. But actually, in many ways, crypto works better because it's more instant, and there aren't all the, as you said, all the barriers put in the way now of transacting with fiat.
There's definitely benefits, and there's definitely those benefits, which is, yes, we can transact just by both of us agreeing on the exchange, and then the exchange happens without anyone having any influence of it. The kind of the nuanced problems are the fact that there aren't any central parties doing that kind of checking, right? So there's a lot more risk involved.
Yeah.
So again, it requires those two parties to transact, knowing that there's a risk involved in terms of like, there's not just a risk between the two parties transacting, and that's a kind of minor risk, right? Because it's all done by, once I've sent it, it's on the network and it's going to get sent. It's just a matter of time. But the risk is I can't then claim it back if something goes wrong. So if we agree to buy and sell something, and an exchange we're going to use is Bitcoin, and then you give me something dodgy that I'm not expecting, I can't go to the network and say, right, give me that Bitcoin back. It's too late. You would have to do that.
And I guess the other thing, I mean, I can't remember how long ago it was now, but I remember Bitcoin when it first started as like the very first digital currency. And it literally just was that, wasn't it? And then I remember the first time I read somebody saying, I've just bought something with Bitcoin. And I was thinking, oh, wow, people are actually using it as a purchasing tool now. And that's obviously exploded quite a lot. But Whereas, well, I guess you've got different Bitcoins, like you've got different currencies, but there doesn't seem to be as many, and again, with all the different Bitcoins, all the different crypto coins now, there doesn't seem to be as many places where you can purchase in Bitcoin. And it does seem to be the bigger organizations that will accept it now.
Yeah, I totally agree. By now, and I was kind of sucked in a little bit when I kind of first got involved in this, which was like, I think it was early 20 or mid 2018. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh God, this is groundbreaking. We're literally on the verge of adoption, which an adoption to me would be like, I can acquire it easily, I can spend it easily, and spend it easily means that there are vendors willing to accept it. And also that it can be done quickly. So and these are some of kind of inherent problems in the technology, and the fact that you can go to, like right now, you can go into a shop and you kind of swipe your card, and it's like, to you, it's instant. There's loads of stuff going on behind the scenes you don't know about, and there's also a lot of time-based stuff going on in the background that you don't really see. But to you, you've swiped your card, the money's out of your account, and you've paid for it, right? Whereas within crypto, there's an inherent delay, because in order to make sure that the right transactions are kind of being recorded, there's that mining activity again comes into place, because those transactions have to be committed to the ledger. And then there's a delay there of, like, I think 10 minutes is the Bitcoin network speed, although they've built these side chains like the Lightning Network, and there's other stuff that goes on that actually makes this a little bit quicker. But they've got the same problems, which is, okay, well, it's not really instant. Again, there's a little bit of trust going on, because you can spend something and then that transaction is working away behind the scenes. So then it becomes a case of, well, if I walk away and that transaction doesn't go through, then the vendor loses out. So there's still a lot of people who are who don't trust it as much, which I suspect now we're like 3 years down the line from, well, 4 years down the line from 2018. And you're right, there's now less. I personally, the way I see it, there's like, you're right, the bigger players seem to will occasionally say pay in Bitcoin, but there's no shops locally that you walk past and said we accept Bitcoin or whatever other currency. They just aren't there.
And what about all these other? Because obviously you can sort of transact with Bitcoin now, but there are so many. There are so many other cryptocurrencies that I've been hearing of. It was partly because of crypto having a bit of a dodgy couple of weeks, but I can't keep up now. There just seems to be so many, and I suppose a lot of them will sort of die a death. But if you were a crypto investor, if you were thinking, right, I want to take my first steps into crypto, where would people start now?
That's always the kind of the best question to ask. But also in the last couple of weeks, that the answer to that may have changed, because previously I would have said, if you don't know anything about it and you just want to own something because you're curious about it, like, go to Coinbase, which is the easiest way. So you can create a Coinbase account, you can buy with a card, and then it just sits there in your portfolio. There are so many things wrong with doing that, just at a fundamental level, but that's the quickest way of doing it. But then Coinbase has got itself into a bit of a problem over the last couple of weeks as well. But that's nothing compared to the fact that they're handing over information to like HMRC and the regulators about, because so they tie you to that wallet now, and then basically whatever transactions you're doing, it's getting fed through like a normal financial transaction. So immediately then it becomes okay, well, don't do that anymore. So then in order to try and get Bitcoin the old-fashioned way, you can either, again, set up your own node, or you can start mining it, which is incredibly difficult unless you've got lots of money. Or you can then exchange it with someone and buy it like through, I've not checked out BitPay for a while, so don't take my word on that, but there's other kind of, how you would have done it in 2012 or 2013, you would have gone on to like bulletin boards and found someone willing to do an exchange for something, either currency or a product of some sort. So yeah, that's what I would have recommended, but I wouldn't recommend it now.
It has changed things, hasn't it? What's gone on in the past couple of weeks, and I think it's made people very tentative. Just a quick question while I think of it. Because you have to buy crypto with what I'm going to call it real money. We know it's not real money, but you know what I mean. Because people have to use real money to buy crypto, does it work the other way?
In order to get it out?
Yeah, can you? So if I spent £50 on crypto, could I then use my crypto to buy £50?
Yeah, it is. Again, Coinbase is that I used that for, I've just exited a position, and that's what I would have used. But that's all I use them for, is effectively it's the quickest way to get to get it from crypto into cash and then into my bank account. and it was only a small amount. It wasn't like the kind of big trades or anything.
Mm.
But yeah, so you can, and it's quite easy to do.
So if you're on a good crypto roll, like Bitcoin has gone crazy over the past few years. I mean, my other half has Bitcoin to get a couple of dodgy things from Amsterdam, which we won't say anything about. And obviously it's shot up. So I guess, is it a bit of, well, has it been, not now, but was it a bit of a hedge against what was happening with not having any interest in your savings at the bank? So could somebody before have, say, again, put 50 quid into crypto, had it shoot up to say 100, and then take that 100 out in cash? So they would have actually done quite well doing that.
Yeah. So the bit I did on, I was covered this on Twitter, that this is one of the projects that has caused a lot of confidence to be lost in crypto, which is the Lunar Project.
The Lunar Project, I wanted to talk to you about that. Yeah.
So it went from like, I can't remember what the highest price was. I'm not sure if it's $80 or $118, but either way, it was like a large amount, and it went to like almost zero within the space of 24 hours. Because, and there's been many like theories on why that happened, but fundamentally, there's like fundamentally something's gone wrong. So whichever theory you believe, the one I like personally was that some guy had kind of figured out the mathematics of the kind of, it's called tokenomics, which is really like, how does the currency actually work? So because it was actually two currencies, it was like a peg currency, then another currency. I didn't pay too much attention on it because I wasn't interested, but I did pay attention when it crashed, because I thought, I wonder how that happened. And then apparently the guy figured out how to maximize the trade and to kind of work the protocols so he would end up with a massive gain. So again, don't know if it's true, but the theory is that the guy that did that walked away with like 900 million in profit, because he figured out how the network works and how best to kind of not manipulate it, but kind of, I think he was combining like shorts and longs. So he was taking gambles that were effectively paid off by gains in the other currency. And it was impressive. If that's what happened, then he deserves it, to be honest, because that's quite impressive.
It really does shake the faith, though, doesn't it? Because people saw crypto, probably more so since the scamdemic happened, as being safer, or certainly possibly becoming safer than real the fake real money.
Yeah, so then you start getting into the dark aspect of it, and actually, do we even know who these people are who are behind all of these projects?
Probably the same people.
Well, exactly, that's the thing, right? But just to answer your question about getting money out, so I had like 50 quid in dollars sitting around on an exchange, and I saw Luna kind of hit right at the bottom, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to speculate that whether it's a dead cat bounce, which is kind of a fake, it's like a fake boom, or I thought, I'm going to speculate, you know what, it's 50 quid just sitting there doing nothing. So I bought like, I think it was just over 1 million of these things, and then within 24 hours, I had like 10 times that. So I was just short of 10 times. It actually went up further than that, but then it started coming down. So I thought, right, I'm going to close it out now. So I made effectively like 400, I think it's like 490 quid from that, which I then immediately converted into a couple of different currencies, sent to Coinbase, and then it was in my account. So it can be done.
So it sounds like it's probably a sort of speculators playground in a way at the moment.
It's brilliant, right? And it's brilliant, and because it's the Wild West. So literally anything can happen. So if you understand how it's actually not about finance, it's actually how people think. And actually, if you can figure out kind of when best to buy, when best to sell, and this, I'm forgetting technical indicators, which personally I don't think are that much use in crypto because it's so wild. Actually, all you need to do is find the early projects, and I call this my kind of shitcoin strategy because it's very high risk, but it's also high gain. So you've got to find the projects that kind of come out of nowhere. You'll probably pick them up on Twitter because people are talking about them, because they'll pay people to talk about them. So if you buy at that point, and all you've got to do, again, just monitor social media and then start looking for comments that start turning negative, because you'll get like a couple of, well, it depends, the timeline's always different, but you'll get a couple of, maybe a week, 2 weeks of, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I've made 5 times the money. I've made 10 times the money. So that's good while it's kind of riding that. But as soon as people start saying, oh, well, either criticizing the project, criticizing the person, or start criticizing each other, that's when you sell, because you know that it's coming soon. Like either the rug pull or it's an exit scam, something's coming soon. So if you've made and you can make unbelievable returns from doing that if you play it right. But obviously, it's the high risk. So yes, it is a speculator's dream.
Yeah.
But you've just got to learn to play it right, and it's less about I'm going to sit and look at stochastics and all that kind of stuff. It's more about let's look at the psychology, because fundamentally, like, markets are emotions, not less finance, more emotions.
It sounds like it hits the same buttons as gambling. I'm not suggesting it's gambling, but it sounds like it hits those same psychological buttons as gambling.
It effectively is gambling, because basically you could lose everything within a heartbeat. I remember again when I was speculating when I first started getting into this, it was like tumbling before my eyes. I'd spent maybe only 100 quid or something, but it was kind of vanishing before my eyes, and I couldn't actually get the order in quick enough to recover. I think I got 25 quid left out of the 100. So it was like, wow, okay, and that was within minutes. The time it took for me to kind of log on to where the tokens were and then sell them, we're talking minutes. So it is gambling. It is a
gamble, yeah.
And then,
what do you think? Oh, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, and then we can come back to this if you want, but then in terms about the characters involved in kind of crypto, and we can come back to that if you want to ask a question.
No, carry on. And then I've just got to keep this question in my head, but it's about Bitcoin and something else, but carry on.
So the characters is interesting because, again, there's a lot of faith placed in Bitcoin and other projects that these people they're saying the right things, but do they really believe them, or have they been paid to do it? Are they kind of agents of the government? Are they agents of organizations? You just don't know, right? And there's a lot of idolization that goes on within crypto that's the same even with politics. It's like, oh well, yeah, these guys built Bitcoin. Is like, who are those guys? Like, do you know them? Like, do you know their background? The so-called, they're kind of hackers and cryptography experts, but like, where do they come from?
Well, that leads me to the question that I was going to ask, actually, which is, and I can't remember where I first heard this articulated, but it might have been a Tim Price podcast. But again, another thing that I was sort of mulling over in the back of my mind for a while is, who created Bitcoin and for what purpose? And then on this podcast that I was listening to a few months ago, this person articulated it brilliant and said, was it created by, was it the CIA?
Yeah.
The CIA. Was it created by, basically the American government, straight CIA, global governments, as a precursor to get people used to digital currency?
Yep.
And I think that was in the wake of all this talk about nations and national governments talking about setting up a central crypto like Bitcoin, like Rishi Sunak's Bitcoin. And I just remember hearing that and thinking, that's what I've been mulling over in my head. Was Bitcoin the plant? Was Bitcoin the cheese in the mousetrap, if you like?
Yeah, no, it's the right question to ask, and it's a very valid one to pursue. And that's kind of what we're saying before the kind of recording went live. That's kind of where my nuanced position comes in, because we do have to take it on faith that it is what it says it is. But actually, the person who allegedly created it, like Satoshi Nakamoto, no one really knows who that was, or if he even exists, or if it was like a fake name, fake personality. Who knows? No one knows, right? There's a guy, and I'm going to forget his name, who's trying to claim that he is that person, but again, don't know if it is or not. And also, it's worth noting that the cryptographic protocols that Bitcoin uses, and all other ones, or most other ones use, all of these protocols usually come from NIST, which is an American government agency. I can't remember what it stands for, but effectively, in order to kind of secure the network, you've used a protocol that the government's been involved in anyway. Exactly. So if there is a back door, then they're going to know about it anyway. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it's not proofed against quantum computing, right? So any cryptography could potentially be vulnerable to quantum computing, because basically all this cryptography it's a massively complex problem that statistically is going to take you more time to resolve than it's actually worth it. So if you've got any kind of encryption going on, and for passwords and stuff like that, the first question is, well, why don't I just throw everything at it? Why don't I just guess what this password is? What cryptography does, it makes that guessing process extremely convoluted. So the more computing power you have to apply to it, and the longer it takes, so as these protocols get better, the more effort you have to put in to try and break them. However, quantum computing effectively gets rid of all of that cryptographic security, because a quantum computer can guess at an unbelievable amount, many, many, many thousands of times quicker than anything we currently know about, or any supercomputer. Therefore, it can quite, reasonably guess that password by just submitting loads of things at it, and then effectively guessing what it is before you even know it. So that kind of destroys Bitcoin. It destroys anything that uses that same, I think it's ECDSA is the protocol. It destroys all of that. So all of a sudden, everyone's sitting there with a completely open technology, because the quantum computer can kind of get rid of it. So, that's another thing. That's another kind of downside that people need to think about as well. It's like, what are the fundamentals that it uses? How much does the government know? Do the government have quantum computers? My guess is probably yes. They probably have it already, which means any kind of security is irrelevant. And then, who are these people, and what is the kind of motivation behind it? And I agree with kind of, it was sorry, who was it? Tim Cast?
Tim Price, I think it might have been on
Tim Price, right?
Price's podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and that is the right thing to ask. Is like, was it just to get people ready to get used to the idea of digital currency? Because if you think about where we are now, and the people who are involved in the projects now, there's a massive push for digital identity.
Oh yeah.
And it's all now becoming tied into crypto, because it's like, well, what would make you trust crypto more, like those transactions more? Well, I would trust it more. People are saying I would trust it more if I knew who the other person was that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So immediately all the kind of justification for Bitcoin and crypto in the first place is gone.
Well, it's all around safety, isn't it? And that's
Yep.
where governments have always managed to do this power grab. It's all around safety and security and all of this. And for a long time, people have traded a lot of freedoms for safety and security. I mean, there's got to be some kind of balance, but there doesn't seem to be any at the moment.
No, I totally agree. So yeah, I suspect that, again, black pill time. It probably. I mean, whether it was designed to do that or not, it has helped the cause. It has helped people get used to the idea of digital currency. And then like saying before about the Bitcoin and the CBDC, so the central bank digital currency, that's just a small step away from like effective Bitcoin or the networks. And actually, what you can see kind of the territory now is you've got all you hear on the news is negative toward Bitcoin or negative towards crypto. You hear about all the crashes, right? So of course the government are going to step in and say, "Oh, see all that money you just lost on crypto. It's all the Wild West. Oh, by the way, see over here's a safe option. So just sign up and get your own wallet over here on this central bank digital currency."
It goes back to that question, doesn't it? Is it planned? As in, was this? Because quite often, especially over the past couple of years, well, I've been down the rabbit hole for a long time anyway. But you can kind of see when you look back. You can see the stepping stones to where we're at. And I'm thinking, if we look back at the advent of Bitcoin, was that the first stepping stone? Was this planned? Or is this just opportunism again?
It could be both, right? But I suppose the way to look at it is we just don't know.
No.
However, but if you kind of treat it with healthy suspicion that it could be, then what that stops you doing is like putting your whole life into Bitcoin or putting your whole life into crypto. And this is where, especially for Lunar, for example, this is where people get swept up in it, because it's like, all right, well, I could invest 1,000 and become a millionaire. So everybody kind of goes into crypto with that kind of expectation, and they don't see the completely blinkered about, the people who run it and everything else and all the other kind of downsides. And then they get wrecked basically, because whoever set them up just disappears with all the money, which is extensively what seems to have happened with Lunar. So it's like, yes. So whether it's whether Bitcoin is legitimate or not, it doesn't really matter. You just need to treat it with that. You just need to be aware of these things.
It's using it for your own advantage. I mean, it sounds to me, and I might have interpreted this the wrong way, but certainly it sounds to me at the moment that if I was going to get involved in any crypto, it would be a case of get in and get out quickly. And make some cash and get out quickly.
Yeah, or just you either use it for a utility, which is like you want to, buy something nefarious, or illegal. I'm not saying you did that. I'm just saying you could do that. Or yes, do a bit of speculation. And to be honest, that's the bit I like about it, because I like finding these little things. It's like no one else is taking that. Well, not no one else is taking the risk. A lot of people are taking a risk, but it's like I know that this is a scam. Therefore, I know that the timeline to make money is quite short. So all I've got to look out for is those signs that something's about to happen or go wrong, and then just if you've made profit, then you're winning anyway. So regardless of how much that profit is.
Yeah. Well, I've just been given a crash course in crypto. I've learned more and I've understood more in the last, how long are we on? The last half an hour than I have in the years that I've been scratching my head listening to crypto stuff, going, I don't understand it.
Yeah, there's so much information out there, but it's like, and this is kind of the problem, right? Because what you want to explain to someone is what it is without having to dig into how it works.
Yeah.
Because you don't get the same problem with cash, right? You give someone a note and you both know without any other conversation kind of what that is worth.
Yeah.
You don't want to say, do you know what, look, mate, I'm giving you this note, but see behind the scenes, there's a protocol going on and there's all this, and it's like, I don't give a shit, just give me the note.
Yes.
And that's the problem with crypto. People get like hung out on the kind of details that no one really needs to know. Yes, people are trying to figure out, which is great, but unfortunately, when you're trying to sell it to someone who isn't really technically familiar with things, it just becomes, they'll just glaze over because they don't really need to know. They just need to know, and this, I suppose, is a measure to know if something has kind of reached that adoption level. Is right. We're going to transact in Bitcoin, so that's the first thing. Adoption means that's just a given. We're going to do that instead of any other currency. Secondly, that they know that transaction is going to be secure and fast. But we shouldn't have to have a conversation about it. It should just.
But it's predictable. I think it's more predictable because at the moment, with inflation sort of running away and people going on about the cost of living, although you can present someone with 20 quid to purchase something, and you're going to get 15 quid change. If it's a fiver, you're going to get 15 quid change.
Yeah.
But we've got sort of slightly runaway inflation at the moment, so that 15 quid change might be worth more today than it is this time next week.
Yeah, well, or tomorrow,
isn't it? Yeah, exactly, or even tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're in sort of uncharted territory, really, with fiat currency, real money, anyway, aren't we? At the moment, so everything's a bit of a speculation.
Yeah, no, it really is. And then I know, again, I've been quite active about this on Twitter in terms of like where my head is currently at is gold and silver, physical gold and silver.
Oh, I've got physical gold and silver. Yeah.
Because if you think about it, and again, it's the real. That's always been the true hedge, and that's not necessarily a hedge against like sterling or the dollar. It's actually something that you can hold in your hand that everybody universally knows is worth something. So forget about what it's worth in dollars and sterling. Just forget about that. It's inherently valuable for something. So if it did come to it, if something terrible did happen, if hyperinflation came along, you've got something that you could potentially go up to someone who's got something you want and say, by the way, I'm going to give you this ounce of silver for that cow or whatever.
Oh, that's a brilliant. This takes us very neatly into bartering and parallel societies.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think again, we talked about this pre going live as the kind of black pill versus white pill frame of mind. The ultimate black pill is where do we end up if it all comes crashing down? So if the financial markets, or if there's a political kind of chaos happens, if the New World Order does get a kind of headshot and it kind of collapses, where are we? Ultimately, you have to think we're right back at the start. We're at the local level. Mm-hmm. I'm in my house and I need to drink, I need to eat, and I need to keep everything warm. That's where you are. So it's kind of, and then you write down to, well, how do I do that if I've not got what I need? Then bartering is your only option. So what you're going to barter with? There was I can't remember where I got this thread from. I'm going to have to try and dig it out and post it. But there was a massive thread from a guy in, I think it was Serbia, like during the Serbian War, who basically, it was like in fact, no, it wasn't a Twitter post. It was like whether it was a blog post or not, it doesn't matter. But basically, it was full of, this is how we survived in Serbia when there was like no power, no currency. Basically,
that would be really useful if you could hunt that out.
Yeah, it was
not now, but obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that because it was absolutely fascinating. Because basically, I think there was a series on YouTube about it as well. But basically, it was fascinating because basically what he said is people became animals. It was like the only way we had to survive is that if you had a gun, that increased your chances. If you had things to barter, that would increase your chances. So it goes, not necessarily the precious metals, but he said anything that's tradable. So like cigarettes, alcohol, he said that they are actually worth more than precious metal or anything else.
Well, of course, because I mean, if you're starving, and you've got like little bits of gold, and someone's got tins of beans, you're gonna swap. You're gonna have to swap your gold for tins of beans, aren't you? So tins of beans, in the end, are the currency.
No, absolutely, because that's exactly it. And then the reason he said that guns were valuable is because, again, this goes through my mind all the time, is like, if that happens now or tomorrow, and we wake up and suddenly that's the situation we're in, everybody's in grave danger, because it is a bit like the zombie situation, because it's like, well, I'm sitting here and I'm reasonably well prepared, but there's thousands of people surrounding me who are not prepared and they are hungry. So people, that's when the danger situation starts to occur. And again, he talks about that in the kind of the kind of Serbian thing, because that's basically what he said. Is like people were out for themselves. Because
you have to kind of pretend, I guess. It's like that bit in what's it, the Cornetto trilogy, where they have to pretend to be zombies in order to get through the crowd of zombies. You just have to pretend you're in the same boat, don't you?
Yes.
So I don't let anyone know that we've got stocks and stores and things like that. I've even kept that from my family, because it sounds awful, doesn't it? I mean, I would sort of share what I had with them, but I don't want them to know that we've got loads of it, because precisely for that reason.
But again, that makes it easier for you doing that. So it might sound harsh, but that actually makes it easier for you, because again, as a human, I think it would be quite difficult to see people so desperate and not being able to help when you could help. So you can do the whole, biblical "we must help everyone" situation, but soon if you do that, soon you'll find yourself without food, and then you're in their situation. So you have to be, again, it's that whole animal kind of mindset you have to get in. It's like, okay, well, how do I best prolong, mine and my family's life through the situation? So
sometimes you just have to ride what is kind of a storm that does pass over, but it's how long will that storm last for, and you can't really predict how long it will last for. I mean,
or what you'll have to do,
or what you might have to do. This sounds really mad, probably, but do you go through those moments where you think, God, this is really actually quite exciting, and I'm really living by my wits, and wow, I've just thought of this. I still find it sort of it's scary, but it's also a bit of an adventure.
No, I'm glad you said that, actually, because I also go through that situation. It was like, whoa, I mean, if you think about, like, we've grown up and watched films where you kind of idolize people, or you look at people having these massive adventures and you think, oh, that'd be awesome, but you're protected from it because you're just watching a film, so you don't live what they live through. But then so I get to that point and it's like, well, hang on a minute, what a time to be alive if this actually happens, and then you have to do these things, and it would be part horrific but also part quite cool. He's like, well, you're literally down to, I've got to pretty much do anything it takes to survive. You've got, and presuming you do survive, then you've got stories to tell, right? Which is basically the story of all our ancestors throughout history who that was just life for them, right? So you could be someone who lived on the coast in 500 AD, or I don't even know when the Vikings were around, but do you know what I mean? Whatever that time frame is, that was your life. It was like, no, I need to survive every day. I need to keep an eye on the coast because these people are coming. So you just
make you feel strangely alive, doesn't it?
It does.
Like you said, it is frightening if you look too far forward and look at the trajectory that we're on. But actually, sort of day to day, week to week, it's quite exciting.
No, I think it is. And also, I made this comment to my wife as well a little while ago. Is we were in the botanics, in the Botanic Gardens, and it was really quiet. And I just had this thought pop into my mind. It's like, do you know what? See, if there was less people in the world, I think it would be quite nice.
I know.
Which is quite a dark thought, but I find myself thinking, like, I can understand why people might want this, want that. And obviously, I'm not condoning that or how they're going to potentially go about it now. But I actually thought, if we were in a situation where this was it, and there's only 10 people in the next 100 square miles, that actually might be quite good. I think I would like that.
Nice. Yeah. Do you know what's really the thing that's sort of sort of, well, maybe ask a few questions about what it is they're doing with these with the sherbet dibdabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that. I don't. I've not had one for a while, but they are crack to me, those dip dabs. So I hope you're not going to ruin it, but it sounds like you're.
Yeah, sherbet dibdab. That's non-Cockney rhyming slang.
Right.
Dibdab. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No. Cocaine.
The old Jabberwocky.
No, you have to educate.
Oh no, I can't say the word because I don't want this one to be taken down as well.
Right. Okay.
The thing that people might think might be causing the monkeypox.
Ah, right. Gotcha. Yeah.
Sherbet dibdab.
Gotcha. Is that what you're referring to? Not the actual sherbet?
No, I'm not actually referring to the really lovely nostalgic thing that we used to eat when we were.
Right, thank God we got that one. Thank God we got that one cleared up.
No, sorry if I've ruined that for you.
No, that's fine. Well, I'd be more worried if you ruined dibdab, so that's fine.
Oh no. No, as I said, non-Cockney rhyming slang.
Good.
So yeah, people are saying, they're talking about the Georgia Guidestones and population control and all of this, and you can kind of see when you look at some of their, well, all of their Agenda 30 regulations and wants and desires. And then I think, why in that case, if they think there are too many people, have they spent so many decades making sure that there are more of them through all these food programs? I mean, I've got my own take on why they might have done that, but what do you think about that?
Oh, that is a big one, because it could be so many things. So I agree with you. Like, if they wanted to poison us or get rid of us, then that would actually be quite easy. I'm kind of, again, I'm on the fence when it comes to chemtrail poisoning as well. Would I put it past them? Probably not. Do I think it's effective? No, because why wouldn't you just poison the water if that's how you're going to do it?
I think that's all about blocking out the sun's rays, because they're crazy about.
Yeah, I think that's
warming. That's what that is. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, but that makes more sense, right? That makes more sense if they were spraying stuff to actually block out the sun's rays, which is actually, but if you think, and maybe this is what they think, that is quite an evil plot if you think about it. If well, I'm going to block out the sun rays because that's going to reduce the sunlight getting through, which reduces vegetation, which reduces food. Yeah. That's actually quite a convoluted plan to do it, and actually quite evil, because that in itself is quite a slow death, or at least it leads to lots of miserable lives.
I don't think they care about that.
No, I don't think
slow deaths would suit them, because if they all came at once, then.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, again, that's plausible. I think where I've gone from especially in the last 2 years, I've always been open to a good theory. But where I've gone over the last couple of years is well, actually, I think, to be honest, everything's now plausible. Everything's got, a lot of things went from probably not, this sounds dramatic, this sounds convoluted, to that's probably plausible. So if we were in that situation, then I think we've got a concoction of actors all working together, and I don't think that we can even easily denied, right? I think we've seen from COVID that we had lots of people, international organizations working together, literally on lockstep, doing everything the same. So I don't think we can even deny that anymore. I think that we know that's the situation, but then they seem to be closing off lots and lots of lifelines. So messing with the weather, messing with the food, messing with drugs, messing with the dibdabs.
The sherbet dibdabs.
Yeah, messing with that, and that just seems to be, again, it's the kind of, it's not all at once. It's not like someone's going to hit a switch and people are just going to disappear. It's as you say, it's the drip, because it stops people from questioning.
Yes, it does, and also, I mean, fertility has been affected for quite a while now through various things, hasn't it? I mean, it's been known that fertility has dropped off significantly in the West.
Oh, for sure, and that alone is, people should be questioning this. However, I say should, but again, that's another, the part of the cultural war as well. It's people should be questioning it if you were rational and you actually you had a notion of nation states and population and all that kind of stuff. But then they've attacked all that. So a lot of people who, especially millennials, don't really have a concept of what a nation state is and the things that you have to do to maintain a nation state, like borders, like culture and things like that. I don't think they even can't even conceptualize that. So actually, again, that fall in fertility and any other time in the world would actually be a worry, because it'd be like, well, hang on a minute, how am I going to replace the people in the society? Replace the workers and whatever else that we need. That becomes a big concern. But so yeah, again, that seems like a complete other angle.
I mean, with automated, we're going in that direction, aren't we? Everything's going to be, or lots of things are going to be automated. I mean, is this a good time to shed a few of the useless eaters?
Oh, well, for sure. But again, it seems kind of convoluted. But well, automation comes along with UBI, because basically UBI is just the kind of the drug. It's like, well, you're no longer valuable to society, therefore I'm going to pay you to do nothing. Which effectively got a trial run of.
Oh yes.
With the furlough. Yep. That was the trial run, and that's the only reason we didn't do a Sri Lanka at the moment. Like when people actually start destroying things, they didn't need to, because actually furlough meant that a lot of people had the best time of their lives.
And still are.
Yes. No, totally. Yeah. So UBI, that's what I see UBI as, because financially it doesn't make sense, because as soon as you introduce like a minimum wage or UBI, for example, then in a true open market economy, the prices just go up, because you just put more money in the system. People are more wealthy, therefore the prices go up. So you've just defeated the whole purpose. So the only way that this can work is if they actually, again, something like a CBDC. And this gets me onto the kind of darker side of, kind of crypto and things like that, is because where crypto is going, it's gone from like a currency to, right, you can actually do things and get rewarded in tokens.
Yeah.
So people can think, and I'm going to forget the lady's name now, Alison something. I'm going to do it. McDowell.
Oh right, okay.
She's really good, because she's taken a massive deep dive into like the government's involvement in like some crypto projects and actually helping to nudge people in the right direction. And what was that game? It was like a Nintendo game where you went outside and it was like a mixed reality, augmented reality game.
Oh, the one where people were literally going outside in parks and bumping into things because was it that one?
Yeah, that's the one. I can't remember the name now.
I can't remember the name of it now. It was it was about 3 years ago, wasn't it?
It was, but effectively that again, all of these things are converging into that.
Yeah.
Go and do things and get rewarded.
So, yeah.
It's like,
I mean, we've been talking about that, about recycling, haven't they? How to be rewarded for the amount of recycling that you do, and so this has been drip fed for a while.
Yeah, and it's all industries, and especially the gaming industry, and that's an angle I'd never kind of considered until I kind of stumbled on her work. And then when I stumbled on it, it's like, oh, I not considered this as an angle. And
I hadn't actually until you just said it. It never occurred to me either that would be the start of the drip feed, would be through gaming.
Totally, because gaming's the perfect way. It's like, guys, just go and enjoy yourself. Just unplug yourself from reality. Go play this game and earn points. And actually, these points you can convert into real things.
Oh, that is dark.
It is. It really is, isn't it? And then it's like, oh, hang on a minute. So,
well, because it gets the children, doesn't it? I mean, because that's what they really want. Is they really want to. If you can get at the children, then you've got your ready-made adults almost, haven't you?
Absolutely. Give it like even just. I was going to say a generation. You probably don't even have to wait that long. Probably wait 10, 15 years, and then you've created the conditions where actually these kids realize that, and do you know what, I can actually plug myself into the metaverse and have a great time on there, where I'm earning things by completing games, or I can take my headset off, go live in the real world that is awful, because they've created that way.
It's challenging. The real world is challenging, and you have to stretch yourself, and you have to challenge yourself, and you have to learn and develop. And people seem to not really want to do that these days. They just want everything almost like a conveyor belt now. Yeah. So they hop on to one end of the conveyor belt and just be transported through life, having everything sort of given to them. They just have to reach out as they're going on the conveyor belt and pick whatever they want, and then ping off at the other end when their time's up.
No, that's it. Exactly. There's a very, saying that though, I will offer a kind of counter to that, because knowing that, because I've got kids from teens to kind of mid-20s, and the millennials are the worst offenders, I think, in that. But actually, the ones coming up behind them are actually showing quite a lot of conservative tendencies.
That's good. Do you think that's their form of rebellion?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's likely to happen. And actually, that surprised me as well, because I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. I've we don't really, I don't foster that kind of any kind of political stuff at home. It's so kind of, we just focus on being a family and having like good morals and stuff like that. But actually, without even me doing that, like my middle son will come and tell me what they've been up to, and thinking that sounds like something we'd have done in the 90s. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
that's quite fantastic.
It is. It was quite heartwarming. And actually, when again during lockdown, especially in Scotland, we had it worse. And I said to all my kids, I said, like, I'm not expecting you to do anything differently. Like, we have elected stay-at-home orders. That's bullshit. So you can go and do whatever you want. If you want to go meet your friends, go out with your friends, go and do it. And they did. And actually, most of the friends did that as well. So I'm like,
that's good.
That was reassuring, because I thought, well, that's good. So that there are, I think there's shoots of, I say, whether it's rebellion or what, there are shoots of kids kind of still being a little bit skeptical. I think they'll go along with it for an easy life, but actually in the background, I think they know. So there's a bit of rebellion there. So that's kind of good.
That fills me with hope, because I don't have children, but I do have nieces and nephews, and I do like to school my nephew, who lives quite close by. I like to nurture his rebellious spirit.
Yes, it's something that'll pay dividends for you and him, I think.
Yes, hopefully, yeah.
If nothing else, it prepares them for real life, as you say, because everything is a challenge. As soon as you,
I hope so. I hope it prepares them for real life, and not this new type of real life that these so-and-sos have got planned.
Well, this kind of goes into what I was saying about the potential rebellion and the kind of the white pill mind, which is, hang on a minute. The way I was thinking about this is like, okay, let's start exploring what that world looks like in order for them to achieve what they want. So let's say they want a control grid. Let's say they get CBDCs. Let's say they get everything else that they want, which is, people not being able to travel because you haven't got carbon credits. Your car won't turn on because you've got a chip in your hand that tells you you're out of carbon credits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just a bit of a mind game, where it's like, I'm going to imagine that world, and then I'm going to start taking it apart to find out, like, what would that even look like. And then I was kind of reassured, because I thought, well, actually, all of the technology, at least that we currently know about, that they would need to do that control, it's extremely fragile. So, like, I mean, even just like look at your Wi-Fi in your own house. Every now and then it kind of crashes and you have to restart it.
Yes.
It becomes temperamental to like magnets or heat or moisture, for example, or cameras are very sensitive to light. So I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. If they've got cameras everywhere, a very simple laser pen will get rid of most of them. Some of them have inbuilt kind of protection, but they're then very vulnerable to heat.
Not that we would condone this kind of thing.
This is purely theoretical. I'm just purely talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Laser say.
Yes, absolutely not do this.
Don't do this, kids.
No, I'm exploring theoretically how these could be circumvented. But do you know what I mean? So actually, and then networks as well. Like they're building all of these kind of big networks. The fundamental rule for anything to do with networks, if it's on a network, it's vulnerable, because effectively a network has protocols. Protocols can be subverted, it can be messed with, it can be broken. Do you know what I mean? It's quite easy to download a virus, compile it, and then deploy it. Very easy to do that. It's also, do you know what I mean? So if they've got these, I mean, IoT, right? The Internet of Things. So your fridge that's connected to the internet is just ridiculous.
I wouldn't have one. I just wouldn't. I don't want anything smart in my house at all.
No, that's the best way, because basically anything smart, so smart kettle, smart toaster, even the Ring doorbells are incredibly vulnerable to compromise, and you'll never know. You'll never know that you've been compromised. So I would agree with that. Don't have them, but if you magnify that to like an entire country, the same thing applies though. So if they've got cameras everywhere, they're gonna have to employ people to come and fix the cameras all the time, because they'll either be broken, they won't be on that, they'll drop off the network, or someone's throwing a brick at them, or someone's pointed a slightly magnified laser pen at them and has melted the sensor, so you're gonna have to keep making the sensors. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
So
China seems to be managing quite well, although you're saying about cameras, some of the Chinese people, whereabouts was it? Was it Shanghai, I think, possibly? Or might have been Hong Kong, where they started to saw the tall CCTV cameras on the big pole. They started to saw through the bases and pull them down.
Exactly, and you probably didn't even need to go that far. You could actually be quite stealthy about this. And again,
Oh yeah.
there's a just for purely for educational purposes. There's a channel on YouTube called Styro Pyro, and basically he builds like homemade ridiculous lasers, and it's fascinating. It's just purely for scientific experiment, of course. But when you
Yes.
start thinking about, oh god, I didn't realize it was that easy, you think, well, what else could you use that for? And there's lots of uses. So it's just things
Yeah.
like that. That would be quite easy to do. So as soon as I started thinking about this, I thought, well, let's say I sit back and just do nothing, and then we just let them build all this control grid. It's not going to last very long, and you can't.
No,
do it
people would
without...
have to get enraged enough, though, wouldn't they? And at the moment, they seem very passive.
They do, and this is again, we all bounce between white and black pill here. Like this is kind of, do we resist it now, or do we just let it crash? Because I kind of posted or tweeted this a few times. Is like, let's just get it done. Let's just bring it all out on the table. Let's just crash the whole thing. Because actually,
I think so, because that's the only thing that's going to wake people up.
It is, and actually, because if you think about what's happening now, is a controlled demolition. They're bringing down one system because they've already partially built, or at least reasonably well built, the replacement system, which is like CBDCs and all that stuff. So actually, what we're experiencing now is that controlled demolition. Inflation is just a sign of that. Yeah. All the cultural things, they're just a sign of that, and they want it to go in that direction. So we're being kind of herded into it. Therefore, and again, I've said this before, like, in order to get rid of national governments, the national governments have to become effectively irrelevant.
Failed states, failed, unable to respond to the wishes and needs of their electorate.
Exactly. So then the national governments can just step in and say, "Don't worry, guys, we've got this. We're going to take care of you. Oh, by the way, sign up to this wallet in CBDC. And this is how we're going to do it for emergencies," and then it'll just become the way. So that's kind of where we're getting herded at the moment. Yeah. But actually, if we actually, this again, it was another thought, like, could we actually trigger that to happen a lot quicker? And I think someone had actually tried it, and I can't remember the guy's name. Basically said, I think it was Canada, they were doing it. It's like, see if everyone just takes $1,000 out of the bank, and enough people do it, will cause a bank run, and then a bank run just signifies the end, right? So I was thinking, well, yeah, that'd be quite an effective way of doing it.
Well, as in bringing in a digital currency quicker, so people could see how it would be.
No, I just mean collapse it now, because if we collapse it now, what you do, you invite chaos, because the chaos you think you're seeing is actually not. I personally think it's already accounted for.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. This isn't chaos. This is organized chaos, definitely. But do you not think if everybody did go and do that would just give them the reason to say, right, we definitely need a digital currency? Because if you remember the last recession, in 2008, there was talk then of, and I remember reading Zero Hedge, and that was when I first read about these globalists talking about a one world currency, because then we wouldn't have these recessions and crashes and things like that. And that was when it was first mooted back then, from as far as I read. So would it not just mean that they could just go, right, well, we need a digital currency now and bring it in sooner? Potentially.
So effectively, you've got two options. One is that inevitable? So at the moment, I think that is inevitable, because they've effectively got all the chess pieces in place, so that becomes inevitability. But it's happening on a timeline that effectively they're choosing. What if you interfered with that? If you interfered with the timeline, it becomes less inevitable, and it actually opens the door to chaos, because they
haven't got all their ducks in a row quite yet.
Exactly. So let's just say people did organize themselves and coordinated I'm going to take £1,000 out of the bank or whatever, or take all the money out of the bank at a certain point in time at a certain day. If that did trigger a collapse, then they're going to be running around because they have no idea. Maybe they haven't
got all the scaffolding up yet, have they?
Yeah, exactly. They can't just turn around tomorrow and say, "Well, do you know what? Sorry, there's been a bank run. Hey, by the way, we've got the solution that might work." But not in that. I don't think they're in that position. Therefore, all bets are off. So, and don't get me wrong, you could end up with an even worse situation in that. You could end up in a really worse situation. But there's also a chance that actually, if by doing that you kind of reveal the truth about what's going on, and if enough people know about it, then you've kind of got a chance to kind of resurrect or build something out of the ashes that actually would be quite good.
Well, I already think that they have gone too quickly with their plan, because as far as I'm aware, and from what I've read and things that I've heard, that they weren't supposed to do this COVID thing. I mean, they sort of piggybacked onto a so-called global virus, but they weren't supposed to introduce some of these measures that they've done over the past 2 years until 2025, because they like their specific timelines, don't they?
Yeah.
And their specific dates in time. So I think that they already went too quickly because they were spooked by Trump and Brexit. So I think already they're on a very wobbly platform and are just trying to scrabble to hold it all together. I mean, we've now got all the information coming out about the sherbet dib-dab, results of the sherbet dib-dabs, those people that are allergic to them. And things are coming out now about Anthony Fauci, and it's all, I mean, the mainstream media aren't reporting it, obviously, but behind the scenes, you've got people like Naomi Wolf, who used to be very mainstream. A few people who are very mainstream are putting all this information out there, and it is bleeding through the mainstream in dribs and drabs. They're trying to keep a lid on it. Whether they can keep a lid on it or not, I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, I think it's up for grabs. I find myself bouncing between, yes, that seems like what's happening, but then I'm thinking, what do we? I mean, Brexit annoys me anyway, right? Because I'm thinking, and I was hardcore about Brexit purely because I just saw it as a layer of government disappearing. Yeah. That's what it was to me. It was like, no, we can strip away one part, then we've got to deal with the rest. And actually, what we ended up with is Brino, and then a lot of people content with that. And I'm thinking, I'm not content with it. So then I started to think, well, did we, like, there's a couple of scenarios, like, was that the true outcome? Like, was that the vote? Like, did we actually win it? Because I mean, at this point, like, I personally don't believe any election, probably for the last 10 years, has been truly valid.
No, me neither.
I suspect they've got control of the whole. Why would you go to such lengths of controlling everything and then leaving a massive open door for elections to take place and actually change and impact things? So I think what we see as wins, and that could also include, potentially Trump being in power, Brexit, that maybe that was the plan to help the division, because that's certainly what's the outcome of both of those events has been massive division.
And it's also throwing us a few crumbs, isn't it, and keeping us quiet. Well, while you're feasting on the crumbs, you're not doing anything else.
Well, yeah. Well, look at, I mean, the QAnon was a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, whilst people were looking at and decoding all of those QAnon messages and think, what they were actually doing is being lulled into, like, passivism, or at least apathy, to say, well, I don't need to do anything because these white
someone
hats
else is doing it for me.
Yeah, which should be a warning to everybody. It's like, well, hang on a minute. If I'm not having to do anything, is it really happening? But then you should just the logical mind would say, okay, if something's happening, I want to see results. And as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, everything that they've said as a result of, like, people being arrested or whatever, it's just not happened. No one seems to be accountable for anything.
Look at Hunter Biden. I mean, look at what's happening there. Absolutely nothing. The whole Fauci thing, he's still wandering around. He's still head of the CDC. Nothing's happening. None of these people are. I mean, I don't even know. I'm sort of losing faith now in the whole Reiner Filmic.
Oh, yeah.
Thing. Wow, because
it's the same thing, isn't it? Because there's lots of, and I was saying, like, right at the start, I thought, oh, wow, this is great. He's actually taking it to them. And then all of a sudden, it's like 6 months later, oh, Reiner is still taking it to them. It's like, is he? Like, how long? Okay, I understand these are quite complex things, but why are these so complex? Surely, if you've got the evidence, it should be open and shut.
Well, I guess even if we've got evidence, I mean, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, but even if he's got enough evidence, and I'm sure he has got enough evidence by now, where's he going to take it? The International Criminal Court isn't going to touch it. I mean, these people have got all of these avenues for any sort of justice or recourse. They've got them all sewn up.
Which
then where we go.
I know what it does take us back to square one, which is like, what do you do and what do you plan for? Yeah. So me, I'm like, yeah, I would love to join some kind of coordinated effort, but the way I see it, I think it would be a drop in the ocean, and I don't think it would work. Therefore, my mind at the moment is planning for if something goes wrong. If it doesn't, great, but if it does, then I'm planning for, like, I need to do, it's all local. I need to have stuff I can trade. Yeah. It's like stuff I can trade. I've got, like, a supply of food. And to be honest, you don't even need to go crazy with your supply of food, because it doesn't matter how much food you have, you're going to have to go out and do some foraging at some point, or bartering at some point. So
Yeah.
that's what you need to plan for. It's like have enough to kind of last you for, you know, maybe a couple of months max. But then just get your head into that space. Is like you're gonna go down to basics, and it's going to be all local. So
Yeah. Are you growing stuff as well?
no, unfortunately, I don't have a garden to do that. Which kind of puts me at a disadvantage. But to be honest, I wouldn't stay where I am. My family have got land in Cornwall, so that's where I would disappear to. To be honest, I wouldn't stay here in the city. Cities are going to become like, I mean, it's just obvious advice, right? You wouldn't stay. If that happened, I'd be out of the city before you know. I'd ram raid a few chemists, and then disappear. So
yeah. So do you think you're in Scotland at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, I'm in Edinburgh. So it's
Edinburgh.
It was, and again during lockdown, it was like peak compliance. It was terrifying.
Is that because they're all in sort of enamoured by wee cranky, as I call her?
It's difficult to get a take on it because, you know, I obviously I speak to a lot of people, and I've actually met very few people who would consider themselves like hardcore SNP. Like the vast majority of people I run into are kind of just either moderates, they just don't care, or they're actually kind of more libertarian type people, which is what you would expect in Scotland. And this is again goes back to, I'm convinced they've got the elections rigged, because I don't.
I'm convinced they've got the elections rigged. I stopped voting a long time ago because I just realised that even if they weren't rigged, that they were all the same party anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's just anecdotally my experience. But again, I work in kind of like the tech and financial services zone, which you would think would be a hotbed of, you know, middle class people who are just zealots, but it's kind of not, and that's not what in my experience, that's not what I found. So I genuinely believe most people are reasonable, and they've just bought the line that they were sold. I think that's my only explanation. It's like this just
are they still buying it?
Unfortunately, yes. Although I'm quite surprised at. I thought, like, I mean, there are going to be lots of people up here going to wear masks forever. So if you go into shops and stuff like that, like a majority have still got them on for some puzzling reason.
Even though you don't need to wear them anymore.
Even though you don't need to wear them, yeah, they're still, and they're even doing it outside still as well. Which that was
crazy.
And that worried me from the start. When people actually started wearing them outside, I thought, stop doing that, because as soon as politicians see you doing something that they want to do but they don't think they can do, if you're doing it for them anyway, they'll just regulate it and just say, yeah, by the way, it's now a rule, because they realise that people are doing it anyway, so it's a quick win for them.
What happened to the Scottish rebels? Because I mean, I have to say, where I've been in England, and I've travelled around a bit over the past week as well, I mean, it's just hardly anyone is wearing them now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I would expect the opposite, but in fact that hasn't happened, and actually the Scots in general have capitulated, which was weird. But then sometimes I'll give them a break, thinking, well, what lens am I applying that? You know, what lens am I seeing that through? Like, I'm quite like philosophically aware of like why we should be worried about a central government with too much power. But the vast majority of people aren't like that. They don't really care. They actually just want to have an easy life. So the fact that I think they just complied, they were sold.
This is what's so dangerous, though, isn't it? It's not because people are buying it necessarily. It's just for an easy life, and you just look throughout history. I mean, I think about Solzhenitsyn and what he said about, if only we'd, you know, why didn't we attack them with a hammer when they came up the stairs to take someone away at midnight? I mean, it's this passive compliance, this passive going along to get along, that is going to drag us into the mire.
No, it really is. It really is, because there's almost no limit to what people would do. I mean, look how far they got with like almost compulsory vaccination. So,
and not just that, the shaming of people for not wearing, condoned by the police as well. I mean, and how quickly it flipped. This is how people can't see how they've been so psychologically manipulated. I don't know, because we went from all in it together, helping your neighbour, to suddenly threatening them, shaming them, dobbing them in if they went for 2 walks in it, all of that.
Right.
And literally overnight, people made enemies of the people that they were supposed. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, because I didn't actually see any of that where I live, and it was all pushed through the media. So I don't even think it was real. It was probably made up, a lot of it.
Oh, for sure. Like, again, but what you see through the news is a very specific like magnification of things. I'm pretty sure everything we saw wasn't real, because actually you just think when people watch the news, people think that the news equals real life. Like my in-laws were succumbed to that, because they thought that what they were seeing on the television and the kind of death counts, and they basically saw outside equals death. That's kind of what they thought.
So sad.
Which is tragic, right? Because when we used to go and visit, they would go through like kind of like keeping distance and stuff like that. Although it would wear off after a while, because we obviously didn't care about that. And we would say, like, look, if you go outside, you can, like, things are normal apart from the mask. And I think the mask to me was just it was to keep the charade going. It's a visual thing, because
it's a completely visual thing.
Yeah, if we didn't have that, I think people would have gone back to normal just by default, because they thought, oh, I'm going about my business, and actually nothing's wrong, so it's fine. But the mask with the visual reminder that something was happening. But apart from that, everything was kind of normal, apart from the first couple of months. And we were trying to convey that. We said, look, there's nothing stopping you going outside. There's nothing stopping you going to a shop. Like, go for a walk. No, and literally, no, it's outside equals death.
Well, I hope the longer that those of us who've not partaken in any of these dib-dabs, and can show that, I've never worn a mask. I've never complied. In fact, I've gone out of my way not to. I'm the sort of person that will walk the wrong way around a one-way system deliberately as a form of rebellion.
I think again, it's those small things, right? Because people need to see people doing things, and if they see you going against the flow and then suffering zero consequences, they'll start thinking, oh, do you know what? I couldn't be asked going around the one-way system either. Or I didn't really want to wear a mask. He's not worn one. He's not got into trouble. So,
well, I think it's the fact that we're all still here and still alive and functioning and healthy. That should speak volumes to people, because we should all be dead by now, apparently.
Well, exactly. Yeah, we absolutely should. Which would have justified them probably like shooting us at the stake or something, which is what they wanted to do.
Do you know what? It really got to the point where I was thinking. I mean, when you saw, because obviously you saw what went on in Canada and Australia, what's still going on in Australia,
still going on,
and China, and I just thought, how far are people prepared to go? When you've got mainstream media characters like Piers Morgan and Andrew Neil saying that basically we should just be excluded from society, you just think, what? How far are these people prepared to go? So you want us locked out of society? What's the next step then?
Well, I think we know what the next step is, right? And that's
we do.
Like what you saw in Germany in the 40s, because that's logically. And again, Jordan Peterson's written a lot and spoke a lot about this, and I think he's bang on the money when one of his things where he said to a lot of his class of students, like, the vast majority of you would actually be either be Nazis or do what they'd asked.
Yes,
that's how it works. And then
beware of your shadow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really good because it makes people think. And now we've seen it, and in our lifetimes, we've actually seen that happen. So actually, it becomes as opposed to this may be just an exaggeration by a professor. It's like, nope, we've just had a real world trial, and we've seen it happen. And yeah, as you say, I don't think we would have been far if all they've got to do is create the conditions and then tell people what the solutions are to kind of change those conditions, which they kind of did, right? They said, you wear a mask, I wear my mask for you, you wear yours for me, you get vaccinated, and
such rubbish.
Oh, it's bollocks, right? But people buy into that because, like, Christ, if these people just wear a mask, I'm going to get out of this, and that's they believe that, So there's only a couple more steps probably to, like, do you know what, these guys are a threat to you, your life, and your family. They must be eradicated. Right, get them on the train. It's not. It sounds exaggerated, but I don't now.
We were nearly there, weren't we?
Yeah,
I think we were nearly there.
I don't think we were far off, and I don't think that's a massive exaggeration either. No. It's like people were quite easily saying things like all these, like I say, looking at the unvaccinated as the unwashed or the undesirables.
The exact same language that was used in the 1940s with the Jews.
Yep. No. Yeah. Without even any change at all. It was just there. People were like, "Yep, sounds good to me. Get them on the train, take them away, so I don't have to worry about them."
Put them in quarantine camps.
And that to me probably was the most worrying element of the whole thing, because actually I can deal with lots of things, but if you end up in that system, that becomes a much more kind of difficult one to get out of. Like the control grid stuff, no, that doesn't worry me. But like the quarantine camp would, because that's something that's a bit more existential, and real and closer than anything else. That is way more. That's closer than kind of the control grid that they're talking about.
Oh yeah. Do you think? I mean, lots of people think that this is over, but I'm sort of waiting really for it to be ramped up again this autumn, winter.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I think this is a lull. I think people are, because I think there's a lot of people who say, well, it's a lull, but actually it's a good time for people to realize how silly things were. But I don't think that has happened. I think there's obviously an element of society who are keeping it going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just thinking it's over, but will probably just go back to their old habits if they're told to.
I wonder. I'm sort of the white pill, black pill thing. I look at the number of people that haven't had, the actual Office for National Statistics data that shows the drop off with each offer of a dib dab, sherbet dib dab, not jib jab.
Yep.
Scrap that. I didn't say that. All right.
Nope.
And, so I look at the numbers, the data, and see. To me, that indicates that fewer and fewer people are buying this crap now. So I think if they try, I mean, I know they've started to talk already, haven't they, about, we're going to be rolling out some more, boosters in the autumn.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how many are going to go for that? Would they really get away with it again? Are they really going to try? I think they're going to try the mask thing again in autumn.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing they can do, and I think.
Yeah.
I think it'll. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're out of the woods at all.
No.
And interestingly, I remember I do have this document somewhere, and I'll have to dig this out and post it. It's I can't remember if it's a Rockefeller thing or it's a UN thing, but basically there's a key sentence for me when I read it the first time, and I read it before COVID. It was like there's going to be 2 systemic tests, or 2 like they were talking about some kind of like, here's what the plan is and here's what we're doing, and there's going to be 2 system-wide tests, I think they call it, within the next 10 years. And it always puzzled me, that use of language. Is like, how would you possibly do a system-wide test of all these things? And then COVID, test 1.
Test 1.
And then test 2. And like Bill Gates has hinted that, the next pandemic, you won't, I can't remember these exact words, but like, you won't miss that one.
Yeah.
So could this be the start of the next one? And they're just going to roll out the same shite that they did the first time.
I think so. It's whether people will buy into it. I mean, I'm just beginning to wonder now about this monkeypox thing, because it's a visual sign, isn't it? It's not like before, where it's this kind of miasma, this Victorian miasma that everyone was scared about. This is a visual. It looks a bit like the bubonic plague, actually.
It's good call. I've not thought about that one, actually.
Yeah. So they've already started. I mean, now there's news today about they're getting together to talk about how to cope with this global monkeypox pandemic, and I'm thinking, here we go.
Yeah, they're revving up for the next.
They thought for a virus again. This is a visual thing.
It is, and it's the kind of, and it's, I'm again quite a good choice. If someone was planning this is quite a good choice, because it's like not necessarily well known, well understood. I mean, again. Some really good analysis reading earlier that there's no actual justification for calling it monkeypox, because I think there's either no or very little difference between that and chickenpox. It's just the fact that if they've got a new name for it, it sounds scarier. Whereas if
I'm surprised they didn't call it the Black Death, actually.
Well, I mean, that would be more effective, right? And maybe that's what it'll, Black Death 2 or something.
Black Death 2, ED2.
Yeah,
ED22.
Yeah, the disease boogaloo. Yeah, that'll be it.
Oh Lord.
So yeah, I think it's coming, and then as you say, it is more visual, but to do this, they're going to have to change a lot of the science, because there's already a lot of articles that say, it's actually quite difficult to catch this. It's you have to either be in physical contact with an open lesion of someone else who's got it, or like the clothes or bed sheets or something of someone who's had it. So that's what they've said before. So what I'm expecting is they do a bait and switch at some point, saying, "Oh, it's airborne." And as soon as they say that, then then you're in trouble, and they're going to do the same thing again, because it's like, if for some reason it's like now airborne, even though it's never been before,
Yeah.
Or new research comes out, it's like, do you know what? We were wrong for all these years. It's airborne.
Yeah.
And then you just know they're going to roll. They'll just spin up the machine again, and then just go down the same path.
Because I think the thing that people have been sort of carrying with, or certainly in the back of my mind, it's been for a while, when Ebola first happened. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I really hope that doesn't come over here. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's got this idea in their heads that at some point we're going to get this really awful, physical, nasty disease in this country somehow. And I'm sure that's the route they're going to go down.
Probably. And also what you might find is this might be more real, because if you think about, again, what the allegations are and what the Sherbet Dib Dab has done to people's immune systems, then actually what you've done is you've opened the door to either a resurgence of like a virus or a disease that's been dormant or brand new and it's been introduced.
Yeah.
And actually you've just primed a vast majority of people, and not just people who've had it, right? The people who surround them, because if they're, again, it's like if you've got a lot of people with compromised immune systems, they become generators of like stronger diseases, which basically means if you haven't, if you've just got a normal immune system that hasn't been compromised, you're still going to have to work a bit harder to gain immunity. This is just, I'm going to caveat this, right? I'm not a medical expert, right? So some people, so don't abuse me, but this is my thinking of it, is that if that does happen, I think everyone will be exposed. However, if you haven't partaken in the experiment, you might find that you may have a better chance.
Well, I'm wondering whether, well, first of all, people have obviously been asking whether this is a reaction. Somebody said this looks a bit like it could be a shingles reaction. I've never seen what shingles is like, so I couldn't say anything about that. But I do know that one of the first jib jabs that was dib dabs.
Yeah, that's it. Now 2 strikes. That's right.
Oh God, that's it. Was they used a monkey gene as a vector?
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is this a result of that, or is it because it is a shingles type of reaction to eating one of these sherbet jib jabs, or for God's sake, dib dab.
If there's any question this is going to get pulled, like we're dubious by now, but now that's it. It's but the way to think about it, right, is that it could also be a cover for something completely different. So, like the kind of what's in those sherbets and what it does, what it does to a human is kind of we're still speculating. So we're seeing, and we're also in danger of looking at isolated events and drawing conclusions that aren't correct. I don't think we are, but that's also a possibility. But there's also the possibility that it's something completely different. So I don't know if you follow, I think it's Caroline Coram on Twitter.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
But there's some stuff coming out of that, and it's, again, I like these things because it makes you think, regardless of whether you buy into it 100% or 50%. It makes you think. It's like, hang on a minute, if there is something else going on, and effectively the virus in brackets or air marks is kind of the cover for it, then that's actually quite effective. Although I've got lots of questions about that, and that's probably a whole other podcast on itself. But there is also the option that, you know, there's things in the air, be it radiation or some kind of chemical. There is an option that we're actually being attacked, and the government are using the virus to kind of cover up what's actually really going on, so people don't get scared and react. So that is also a possibility. And what that means is that actually this is actually quite a good thing, because our government would seem to be working in our favor. They're just not telling us the right things. That's also an option. I'm not bought on that at all, but it could be an option. So
I think that's definitely very white pill option.
It is, yeah. And I struggle to go there. I struggle to go there, to be honest, because I'm more like, no, do you know what? I'm going to get my pitchfork and I'm going to run through people. It
would be nice, wouldn't it, to think that they really, really, really cared about our welfare, but well, I'm beyond all that.
No, I agree. I don't think that is. I think that's the least likely situation, because I think if it was the case, then it would actually be better for them to come out and tell us what was going on. Because if they wanted people to be on a war footing and actually given a blank slate to do what they wanted, that would be the ultimate. They'll be saying, by the way, guys, we're under some kind of chemical or radiation attack. We've got to do these things, and we're going to fight them.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, all of the problems about people getting behind something are gone.
Would we believe in them though, even?
Well, not now, but I think we would have at the time.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but my current mindset is whatever they tell me, I'm pretty assuming the opposite is true.
Yes, I'm exactly the same. Dan, it's 8 minutes to 2.
I can't believe it's gone that fast.
I don't know. I think you need to finish at 2, don't you? Shall we end on a couple of positive takeaways for people? They're probably doing lots of stuff anyway, but if you were going to give 2 really good bits of advice for people to sort of disconnect or go more off the radar, if you like, what would you advise them to do?
Great question. I think the first thing to do is take regular breaks off social media. I think that's the best thing anyone can do, is because it's a great source of information, but it's also very dangerous of thinking that's the reality. So that's the first thing. Take frequent breaks, like whether it's a couple of days or even a week or 2 weeks. What you'll find is your mental health improves. I think that's the main thing. And then the second thing is, I would say don't worry about what's happening. And this is, I'm not necessarily a religious person, but effectively, from a spiritual point of view, we're meant to be here at this point in time. So I believe that everyone's got the tools that they need to kind of get through whatever's coming. So just don't worry about it. I think if you, like we said before, do a bit of preparation, like prepare yourself for like an immediate shock, and then you're going to be more prepared than like 95% of other people, and then we'll figure it out from there. Like people have done it before, so we can do it again.
That's really good. Yeah, to sort of dig into the knowledge of your ancestors.
Exactly.
And dig out those skills or learn those skills. And and reconnect with your community if you haven't already. I always say this on every podcast I'm on or I do, is if you haven't been to your local stand in the park yet, that's where you're going to find some really great people. You're going to find some quirky people and some out there people and some flat earthers and all of that. But there are some very good people from all walks of life. And it's not just a case of standing in the park and chatting anymore. People are actually doing stuff. They've formed farming groups and growing groups and holistic therapy groups and schooling and all of that. So there's real stuff happening on the ground. So I would highly recommend Stand in the Park for people. And I want to say thank you to Nathan. I don't know if he's still with us, but for tuning in. And thanks, Nathan.
I'm sorry, Nathan. I wasn't even looking at the comments section. Oh, that's really rude of me.
No, it's really hard to multitask. I've got really bad at it. Dan, I want to say a really big thank you. It's been such an interesting chat, and we must do it again. What were you saying about a whole other conversation? There were many other conversations we could have had, I suppose, about all kinds of things.
Oh no, totally. Yeah, let's do it again. We can pick and choose as and when we do things.
Maybe we should get into some esoterica or something.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, great. Oh, well, enjoy your weekend, and thanks.
Yep, you too. Have a great one.
Thanks to anybody that was listening who hasn't signed in, and anyone that's going to listen in the future. And we'll speak soon.
See you later.
Bye.
All right, bye.